what did our early days look like? Did we ever have the money talk? And did we intentionally align around this area, or did we sort of fall into it? Now, before we get into that, I think it's pretty easy to say that our early money days were a little unique in that A, we were very young, and B, we were poor. Like, we didn't have any money. So it was some of our decisions were very easy to make. Whereas given the changing dynamics around long-term relationships now, some of them happening much later in life than ours, where you might have more assets, you might be more established, you might have more financial habits that need to be broken. We didn't have a lot of financial habits because we were super early on. So ours was a little different. So we didn't have to do some of these things we're going to talk about here, but we did naturally grow into some of these areas. So what's a money talk? Is that a term you've heard before we started planning this episode? What's the money talk?
I haven't heard a lot of people say the money talk when it comes to the people that I work with, but I've had people ask me about it, or they'll tell me, oh, this is how we handle our money. And then we'll have a discussion on it. And so I've learned, because I know how we do it, but now I have a pretty good sense of all the different ways that money can be handled in between a couple. Some of those healthy, some of those not healthy.
Right. So let's dig into what the money talk is in this context. So I think we all know the rom-com sort of version of, oh, we stayed up all night and we had this great conversation. We really connected. This is maybe the more practical side of that type of conversation. When in your relationship did you bare your financial soul? Did you really have those heart-to-heart conversations about your money and how you manage money? And there are different times in your relationship where it makes sense to have those conversations and at what level you have those conversations. There's no reason to go super deep with someone you're just casually dating and seeing. But if you get engaged, you go deeper on some of these conversations. And those talks include things like, what are your financial habits? Are you a spender or a saver? How do you manage your money? Do you budget? Do you save for the future, or are you living paycheck to paycheck? And I think for those money talks to be successful, they have to be super transparent and they have to be open. And again, at the right time in your relationship. Now, if you're just casually dating, no, that's
Right.
your individual business. So when we were in college, coming out of my graduation, yours, we were engaged. And I think at this point, we were very much in our financial transparency area. And we had really explained to each other what we were making. We knew what our assets were. By the way, there were none. We knew what our debts were. By the way, there was lots, primarily around school, a little bit of consumer, but primarily around school. But we started to align around what were our goals for that money and how we were going to build out of it. Now, one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is there was a phase of time there where the money talk wasn't a thing at all. But today, especially with Gen Z type people, it is something that's very intentional. When you get to the point where you're committing to someone, bearing it all out is something that's growing. And I was reading some research, and I'll put a link to this in the description, that was talking about somewhere around half, 47% of Gen Z report that they are having very intentional money talks as they're getting serious, which I think is awesome. Like, if it's a big cause of breakup and divorce, talking about it early, great, and with clarity. So before we had our money talk, before we were married, we were just engaged. How do we manage our money?
Totally separate. You earned your money. You kept it. I'm assuming you had a savings account and a checking account.
I think we reviewed earlier in episode 2 when I bought your ring that I clearly had a checking account, and someone clearly might have snooped in that ledger to see that an engagement ring was coming her way. So yes, I had my own checking account and managed my own money. Call back. Go on.
Very much so. And I did the same. And I'm thinking it was because there was no reason to. Your bills were your bills, my bills were my bills. They weren't combined. And so at that time, we did not need, I don't even think it crossed my mind that we would, when just dating, combine.
And nor should you. You never should combine when you're just dating with somebody. Even if you're living together, you should never combine. There are protections when you combine finances. When you're married, there are no protections if you choose to combine finances. And that means buying things together, like a house. It's really, really risky to buy a house together with someone you're not married to. So yeah, we kept all of our finances separate. to your point, it never really crossed our mind. But I think now that you see a lot more people choosing to live together early, you're seeing a lot more commingling of financial responsibilities. I would just say the only clean way to do that is you maintain separate financial identities. If you start mudding those together, you can choose to share bills and do that sort of stuff. But if you start combining resources when you're not married, that is very legally problematic. So don't do that. Okay. Did we sort of alluded to this? Did we ever have a money talk? Did we ever sit down and really bare our souls on that, or what did we do?
No, not in a formal way. I sure you had an idea. I was doing work study. You kind of have an idea of what somebody makes when they're doing work study at college before I got my other job. So we talked about what we made. I feel I did.
Probably.
Is that accurate?
I think it is. I think where our real money talk came, we had dug a pretty big hole, and we had some pretty good visions of where we wanted to go. And I think we knew we wanted to, again, keep in mind we were engaged at this point. I think our vision was to do some big and some not so big things pretty quick. Like we wanted to buy a house.
We did.
We were very much in the mindset of buying a house, and I think you reminded me that we wanted to get a dog.
We did.
Yeah, and I think they came dog first, house second, if I recall. Or
Very close together. Not until we had decided and found a house and started that process, because we knew better. We wanted a Rottweiler, and we knew apartment living for a Rottweiler isn't sustainable. I believe we got him a month before we moved into
Gotcha.
Our first home.
I'll put some photos in because we've got some great photos of him. He was all of about, I don't know, this big or whatever, and he ended up being well over 100 pounds. So he was
130, actually.
Yeah, he was a beast. But yeah, we had him in that little apartment to start. Let's talk a little bit about our tendencies at that point, because it'll be a good counterpoint as we get into how we manage money now.